Have you ever started a story with a great idea only to get completely lost somewhere in the middle? That feeling that your plot just is drifting and you don't know what's supposed to happen next. And that's one of the main reasons writers give up. It's called the messy middle for a reason. But what if there was a map for that journey? Hey guys, my name is Jason Hamilton. I'm someone who geeks out about storytelling mechanics, and I can tell you that having a solid structural map is the single best cure for that saggy middle problem. Today we're talking about the most famous map of all, and that is the 3-act structure. This is part of my larger project to cover every major story structure, so if there's another framework you're curious about, be sure to drop that in the comments and I'll be sure to get to it. Now, at its most basic, the 3-act structure is a model that divides a story into a beginning, a middle, and an end, but it's more specific than that. It identifies key moments or plot points that must happen to bridge these acts and keep the story moving forward. It's a chain of cause and effect. Each scene has a purpose, pushing the narrative to the next logical point. So you can think of it as the foundational architecture of most stories you've seen or read, a blueprint that storytellers have been using for a very, very long time. We'll get into that messy history later, but first, let's break down the machine itself. The common version has 3 acts broken into 9 distinct beats. Let's walk through them one by one. Starting with Act 1, the setup. The first act is all about establishment. It typically makes up the first quarter of your story, and it's where you set the stage and introduce the key players. But its most important job is to knock your protagonist off balance and shove them out the door. It contains 3 key beats. Number 1, exposition. Exposition is where we meet the protagonist and see their ordinary world. This is their life before the story's main conflict kicks into high gear. What's their daily routine? Who matters to them? This before picture is crucial. Without it, the after has no meaning. The reader needs a baseline to measure the character's transformation. Now, this is your chance to make what I call the 5 promises to the reader. You promise a character worth rooting for, you establish the tone and voice of the story, you define the world and its rules, you introduce a problem that hints at the main conflict, and you set up the catalyst that will change everything. Now, the second beat is the inciting incident. This is the spark. It's the event that disrupts the protagonist's equilibrium and sets the story in motion. A distress call from a princess getting captured by terrorists. A tornado sweeping you off to a magical land. You get the idea. It presents the protagonist with a challenge or an opportunity. Crucially, the inciting incident is not the same thing as the next beat, plot point 1. The inciting incident is the call to adventure, but the hero can, and often does, hesitate or refuse the call at first. It's the moment the problem lands on their doorstep, but they haven't decided to solve it yet. Speaking of which, let's get to the third beat of Act 1, which is plot point 1. This is the point of no return. It happens at the end of Act 1, around the 25% mark, and represents the protagonist's decision to fully engage with the conflict. They are no longer reacting, they are committing. And maybe their home was destroyed, leaving them no choice but to join the rebellion, for example, in Star Wars. Maybe they volunteered to take somebody's place in a deadly game, as we see in the Hunger Games. However it happens, this is the moment your protagonist crosses a threshold. They leave their ordinary world behind and step into the world of the main conflict. Life will never be the same for them again. This is the springboard that launches your character and the reader headfirst into the second act. And Act 2 is called the confrontation. Welcome to the long middle. Act 2 is the beefiest part of the story, making up about 50% of the total length. It's called the confrontation for a reason. This is where your protagonist learns the rules of this new world, faces escalating obstacles, and truly grapples with the central conflict. This act is often the hardest to write, but its structure can guide you through the darkness. So the first beat in Act 2 is rising action. The journey begins in earnest. The protagonist starts to pursue their goal, but roadblocks appear at every turn. They meet new allies and enemies, and the full scope of the conflict and the power of the antagonist becomes clear. During this phase, the protagonist is often more reactive than proactive. They are learning, adapting, and surviving. A helpful way to structure this section is the rule of 3. You can group obstacles or attempts into 3s. The first 2 attempts might fail in similar ways, teaching the character something, while the third attempt succeeds because they've learned and adapted their approach. This creates a satisfying rhythm of trial, error, and growth. And by the way, if you'd like to learn more about how to use AI as an author-led productivity tool to help you write 12+ books a year easily, perhaps more, and without compromising your creativity or ethics, check out the Story Hacker Gold group, which is linked down in the description below. All right, the next beat is the midpoint. Right in the middle of the story, at the 50% mark, something big happens. This is the midpoint, a major turning point that spins the story in a new direction. The stakes are raised dramatically, and the protagonist might gain some new information that changes everything, or the emotional tone of the story shifts. Sometimes this is a false victory. The hero thinks they've won, only to discover the real problem is much bigger than they imagined. Other times, it's a false defeat, a moment that seems like a total loss, but actually forces the hero to regroup and find a new, better strategy. The midpoint is often a point of no return in its own right, where the protagonist is so invested that turning back is now utterly impossible. Then we get the next beat, plot point 2. As we approach the end of Act 2, around the 75% mark, we hit plot point 2. This is often called the all is lost moment. It's a devastating defeat. The hero's plan has failed, their mentor might be dead, and the antagonist appears to be completely triumphant. It's the protagonist's darkest hour, where they are stripped of their illusions and forced to face a hard truth about themselves or their situation. This moment feels like the end, but it's really the opposite. This rock bottom is the launch pad for Act 3. It's the crisis that galvanizes the protagonist, giving them the final resolve that they need to face the antagonist head on. They have nothing left to lose at this point, and that makes them more dangerous than ever. And that leads us into Act 3, the resolution. The final act is the payoff. It's typically the last quarter of the story, and it moves fast. All the setup, all the conflict, all the character development comes to a head in this act. This is where the central question of the story is finally answered. So the first beat in Act 3 is the pre-climax, sometimes called the dark night of the soul. This beat begins with the protagonist licking their wounds after the disaster of plot point 2. They gather their remaining strength, allies, and courage for one last desperate push. Simultaneously, the antagonist is preparing for the final battle. As the hero storms the castle, we see the full extent of the antagonist's power. This is where doubt should creep into the reader's mind. We've been with the hero all this time, but for a moment we should genuinely wonder if they are strong enough to win. The next beat is the climax. So this is it, the final showdown. Climax is the scene or sequence where the main tension of the story is brought to its most intense point. The protagonist and antagonist face off, and the story's central dramatic question, will the hero save the day, will the lovers get together, etc., is definitively answered. One common mistake is confusing the climax with the ending. They are not the same thing. The climax is the final peak moment of conflict. The ending is what happens after that conflict is resolved. The climax is often a single powerful scene, while the next beat deals with the aftermath. And that next beat is the denouement. Denouement literally means the untying. After the intensity of the climax, the dust settles. This is where you tie up any significant loose ends, fulfill any remaining promises made to the reader, and release the tension that has been building. The denouement shows us the protagonist is in their new normal. It should mirror the exposition in some way, returning to a similar setting or situation, but showing us how the character has been fundamentally changed by their journey. This is our final look at the character, confirming their transformation and giving the reader a sense of closure. It's the satisfying emotional exhale after a long, tense journey. So where did this structure even come from? Most people credit a guy named Sid Field, who wrote a book called Screenplay in 1979. He's the one who popularized the specific model for Hollywood, complete with page count and terms like plot point. But the real origins go back a lot further, and they're a lot messier. The trail leads back to the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle around 330 BCE. In his book Poetics, he observed that successful tragedies had a beginning, a middle, and an end. Now, modern writing gurus have twisted this to mean he invented the three-act structure, and he didn't really. What Aristotle was talking about was wholeness. A beginning is something that doesn't necessarily follow from anything else. An end is what follows from the beginning, but has nothing following it. A middle connects the two. His big idea was causality. A story must be a chain of logical events, not just a series of standalone episodes. He was describing an organic principle of good storytelling, not prescribing a formula. But the idea of acts really came from the Romans. The poet Horace, in his Ars Poetica, declared that all plays must have 5 acts. Why 5? Mostly for practical reasons like giving the actors a break and changing scenery. It was an arbitrary rule born from theatrical convention that became a rigid law for almost 2,000 years. Fast forward to the 19th century, and the German novelist Gustav Freytag created his famous pyramid. I'll have another video of that one very soon. He visualized the 5-act structure as a triangle: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. But hidden inside his 5-act model was the skeleton of our modern 3-act structure. Then Then came Sid Field. In the late 70s, he took all these vague ancient ideas and codified them into a practical, teachable system for screenwriters. He named the acts Setup, Confrontation, and Resolution, and he gave them page count targets. Act 1 is the first 25%, Act 2 is the next 50, and Act 3 is the final 25. He gave us the terms like inciting incident and midpoint. Now, Field's model was a revolution because it was so specific and applicable. It gave writers a concrete map to follow, and Hollywood studios loved it because it provided a predictable template for developing and evaluating scripts. Essentially, the 3-act structure we know today isn't an ancient law of storytelling. It's a 20th century screenwriting tool built on a foundation of ancient dramatic theory. The 3-act structure is dominant for a reason. It works. It provides clarity and helps writers diagnose pacing problems. If your middle sags, it's probably because your Act 2 lacks escalating complications or a strong midpoint. More importantly, audiences have been trained for decades by movies to expect this kind of rhythm. It feels natural and satisfying to them even if they can't explain why. But its dominance is also its biggest problem. Critics argue it has led to a plague of formulaic, predictable stories. When writers treat it as a paint-by-numbers blueprint instead of a flexible guide, creativity can suffer. James Bonnet, a former director of the Writers Guild of America, argues it's just an arbitrary division that has very little to do with the great masterpieces of literature and cinema. Not sure I'd agree with that. But it does also struggle with more complex narratives, like films with non-linear timelines or ensemble casts with no single protagonist. And it can feel confining for stories that prioritize mood and atmosphere over forward-moving plot. And it's important to remember that this isn't the only map. There are other models like Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey, which focus more on the psychological transformation of the hero. In Japan, there's a 4-act structure called the, and I'm totally going to butcher this, I'm sorry, Kishotenketsu, which is built not on conflict, but on introduction, development, twist, and reconciliation. The twist in the 3rd act serves to recontextualize everything that came before, leading to a new understanding rather than a victory. These other structures prove there are many ways to build a compelling narrative. Ultimately, the 3-act structure is a tool and a powerful one. It's not a set of rigid rules per se, but understanding its mechanics, its history, and its limitations allows you to use it effectively, or to know when to set it aside and choose a different tool for the job. And that said, I have found that the 3-act structure is prevalent in most other story structures, even if they're not explicitly laid out in the same way. If you're ready to stop staring at a blank page and start building your own stories, I want to invite you to my private community, Story Hacker Gold. This is where I walk you through my entire process from coming up with that first idea to holding the finished book in your hands. We cover everything you need to know, including how to market your work and how to leverage tools like AI to massively boost your productivity without ever compromising your ethics or your unique creative voice. The group includes weekly live calls with me, a library of all my ebooks and audiobooks for authors, and a community of writers who are all very serious about getting their work out into the world. If that sounds like a map that you've been looking for, click the link in the description to join Story Hacker Gold, and I'll see you in the next video.